let's first talk about what is customer relationship management, right? And by definition, they say customer relationship management is an approach to managing a company's interaction with current and potential customers. And it uses data analysis about customers' history with a company to improve business relationships with customers, specifically focusing on customer retention and driving sales growth. So, Nikita, can I request you to be mute as well? Because I think there's background noise. Perfect. Okay. So, if you just kind of spend a couple of seconds on this definition of CRM, a couple of things that will stand out to you about CRM is this is about doing data analysis so that it can give you sales growth. Now, a challenge that I've seen as entrepreneurs, I've been an entrepreneur myself, is very often that we have this amazing idea and you obviously have a strength of executing on that idea. And we jump into setting up a business around it. But how many of us actually, before we start the business, have sat down there and honestly done a business planning activity? And I think that is like critical. And why is it critical is you have to plan for your business. And when you do your business planning activity, you will realize one critical part of business planning is your target customer segment. And now that's really where the starting point of CRM is. Who is your customer? You could be in a business which is B2C, which is reaching out from a business to a consumer, or you could be in a business which is B2B, which is business to another business. Whatever space you operate in, it's important to identify what's your target segment. And I'll talk a little more about it, but I just wanted you to kind of keep that at the back of your mind as you listen to this. If you still haven't done that, it's never too late to do it. Please do your business planning activity. You can Google it. You'll find a lot of business planning templates. Pick up something and create your business plan for your business. And then think about who are your target customers, because without having clarity on that, CRM is just a good English word, really. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Now let's look at what's happening in our world. One of the reasons why we are struggling with customer relationship management right now. The first trend is certainly what's happened most recently, and the impact of this is here to stay. A lot of people out there are waiting for things to get back to normal. Sorry, bad news, and I'm the messenger for that if that's what you were thinking, because there is going to be no normal as you knew it. We are all going to define a new normal. We've seen that happen in the past. The 9/11 happened. The way we enter an airport changed. 26/11 in Mumbai happened. It changed the way we enter five-star hotels. I'm picking up some very visible ones, but that's our reality. So COVID-19, this pandemic, is going to change. And few things in the short term and the long term that you will see change happen is firstly this whole thing about social distancing. And I know I speak to a lot of salespeople, and their biggest worry is, how am I going to sell in this new era of social distancing? And we'll talk more about it, but this is here to stay. Travel holds. If you were zipping around the globe, selling to different customer segments, interacting with them, you will find that's not going to be possible for almost a year and a half, if I can see it from where we are looking at it today. And the third piece that's going to become important for all businesses is going to be liquidity, or simply cash flow. Specifically, if you have a team of people who work with you, you will already realize, and you may be already thinking about, how do I manage my cash flows? If you are an individual entrepreneur and you're kind of doing your own stuff, maybe this is not pinching you as much. But if you have even a small setup, you will have to think about this. So this is the impact that we are seeing of COVID-19. But then even before COVID-19 happened, there were big disruptions that were happening in our market. The big one being digital. Now, digital disruption has got a pro and a con both, right? But I'm going to look at it from a neutral bias. Firstly, what digital has done is it's changed the buyer expectations. And it's changed because of various reasons, right? I, as a customer today, have information at the click of the button. And that changes the way I think. It changes the way my expectation is from a brand, right? Think about you yourself going to buy a mobile phone, and think about how you bought a mobile phone, say 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, to how you do that today. It's very easy to go on to Google, do a compare the phone chart, get the information that you're looking for, but you still do go to a retail outlet and you still have that conversation with somebody on a retail counter. But your expectation of what that person tells you and the interaction that person has is very different now than what it was 3 years ago. And that will tell you what I mean by buyer expectations changing. And what this is leading is, it's leading us to think about how do we create omnipresent brands. So you can't just say, oh, I have a website. Oh, but are you on Instagram? Are you on LinkedIn? Or, depending on your target segment, are you on TikTok? Are you on Facebook? Because today, a customer actually interacts with the brand on multiple formats, and you can't choose the format on which he or she will interact with you, right? And the other thing is, how do you create a seamless movement between digital and analog conversation? Digital is on a platform, and analog is when you take it offline. And I think this is also becoming very important and will be even more important going forward. So if you and I were in a buy-sell relationship today, it would be important for me to think about, how will I take this call, this webinar, to then a specific conversation with you, which will generate revenue. And you have to think about some of those things, which we haven't had to worry about in the past. The other trend is, again, maybe an impact of digital, but more an impact of technology, that we are seeing an emergence of technology-led innovation. And this innovation is happening in multiple dimensions. We are seeing business models go through change. So we were talking to somebody as we started, and she said she's in the manufacturing of glass panels. You think about manufacturing, you think about contracts, you think about how these things are being delivered, you'll find the business models there are changing. We are talking about manufacturing as a service today, where people are not only paying for what you manufacture, but the quality, the service that you give later, and all of that stuff, right? So manufacturing is becoming a service. Value chain redesign is happening. Supply chain redesigns are happening. And all this is being led by the technology-led innovation. If you look at the most recent conversation around this, think about the Facebook Geo tie-up, investment, acquisition, whatever you would call it. But it's going to change the way a lot of the businesses function. And if the target segment is the small and medium businesses, and it's about taking them onto a platform where they can directly engage with the customer, think about the impact it will create and the innovation it will require from a technology standpoint, right? And then the final one I want to touch upon here as a trend is a multi-generational workforce. They say it is the first time ever we have 4 generations of people in our workforce. It has never happened before. We've seen two, we've even seen three to some extent, but now we've got the 70 something still working, and we have the 22 something coming to work. And that's really covering 4 generations. And you have to understand that why is this important? It is important because each generation thinks differently. We've seen an emergence of a gig economy. Upwork, Fiverr, these were platforms we never heard about, have become a reality of our businesses today. Digital natives coming to work. What does that mean? I am a digital migrant, which means when I was growing up, traditional way of working was not digital. So I've migrated to a digital platform. If today I use an iPad to make notes, it was a paper and pen that I was using earlier. But if I look at the 22 something, they were born with a mobile phone, like literally. So their comfort of using technology is very different than our comfort of using technology. If you were born at a time that when technology was not as all pervasive as it is today. And the last piece there is what we are calling the no collar workforce. Earlier we would divide people into blue collar and white collar. Blue collar were the people who were actually the doers or the workers, and the white collar were basically the managers. Now we are saying none of this will exist because technology is taking over, which means this demarcation between white collar and blue collar is going to go away. And this is going to create a no collar workforce. Now, how does this impact your business? What is impacting is really, on one hand, we are seeing a lot of the B2C business is going through a big shift. Think about the Netflix, think about Amazon, think about a lot of the technology businesses that have become the forefront of traditional businesses as we used to know them. And the advantage that they are bringing in the space, it's becoming more personalized, it's enhancing your experience, and it is giving you immediate gratification. So you want to buy something on Amazon, click of the button, you make a purchase. You don't have to wait to go to the market, order it, get it delivered. None of that happening, right? Now, while B2C, we've seen a big shift happen there. We haven't seen a similar shift happen in the B2B space, or at least it's not been as rapid as we would have liked it to be. B2B is still disconnected. It's still time consuming. We still take days to give out a proposal. And this is creating a difference because remember, even B2B business is B2C, B2C, B2C. So whichever business you're in, if your business is B2C or your business is B2B, you do need to know that what is the customer expecting is more personalization, enhanced experiences, and immediate gratification. And what we need to really think about is how are we going to give this to them, right? Now, thinking about this from a business standpoint, I often struggle with this question to say, is it ignorance? Is it that we don't know what CRM is or why is it important? Or is it inaptitude, which means, I know it is, but I don't know how to do it. And I'm going to try and address both those things because I think both are important. And I think I've seen in my experience that both the scenarios happen. Sometimes we are so lost in the idea of what we do, and we just so love the idea of the business that we've set up that we forget to do a business plan. We don't know what are we competing with. We've not been honest to ourselves to say, okay, what's my competition here? What is the strength of that competitor? What's my target segment? So a bit of that is about ignorance. Now, if it is not ignorance, then a lot of times it is also about inaptitude as well, which means that, well, I know what my customer segment wants, but I don't know where to get started. And some of that is delivered by also the disruption maybe that's happening. So earlier we used to say sales was about going out there, you meet someone, you discover their needs, and you sell them a solution. So if I was a training company, I went to you and I understood what are you really looking for. I understand what your needs are. You want better time management, you want to improve leadership, and then I give you a solution of what I do. So it was kind of simple. But now with all the trends that we spoke about, what's happening is that there's a new requirement coming in. And for keeping it simple, let's call it providing perspective. And what's really happening is that today, while you discover the need, the customer expectation is you need to know my world. You need to know, and if you're in the B2B world, you need to know who's your customer's customer. If you're in a B2C world, you need to know what category does that customer fall into, because he has peers and the peers influence the way they think, right? um, what are their growth drivers, what excites them to do things and get into actions, right? And when we are talking about providing perspective, we're saying, go back to the example I gave earlier of you wanting to buy a mobile phone. You've already done a compare the phone chart. So you know the kind of phone you need. You've got criteria. Well, I need a smartphone. It should have this much memory. It should have a camera like this. It should have these apps that can work on it. I already figured that out. Now, what do I need to know from the person I interact with? I want that person to provide a perspective, which means either he or she helps me identify an unrecognized problem. So if as a seller, you were to ask me, all right, so how many times in the day do you charge your phone nowadays? Is battery an important criteria for you? By the way, did you consider that when you were making your choice of the phone? I'm helping you think through maybe a problem that you didn't recognize, right? Or an unanticipated solution. All right, you thought the mobile will do this. What if the mobile came with a voice command thing that would help you also record your notes on it? I will give you an unanticipated solution. Or I help you see an unforeseen opportunity, something you weren't even looking at before you spoke to me. And I helped you see that. And I'm like, you know what? Other people have done this. Or the last one being, I could be a broker of capabilities. I tell you, okay, I understand this is important for you. These are the things you need to do. But, I know someone who could help you do that. So you're going to buy a mobile phone, you would need a case for it. I know someone who can get you the case, for example, if you're staying with the mobile phone. So we're finding, and I want to really put this out there, that understand the buyer expectation is changing with the disruption that's happening around that. And with this current pandemic, this is going to be visible even more than it ever was, which means it will become important for us to know when do customers reach out to you, right? And you could be in a B2C space or in a B2B space. When does somebody reach out to you to buy your service, solution, or product? Now, research tells us that there are only about 30% people who reach out early in their buying decision, which is where they're still thinking about what is my problem. Most people reach out once they've identified a problem and they've also identified a solution, right? So if we were talking about wellness or nutrition, then imagine that this person's already figured out that I need to get better at maybe my weight loss regimen or weight gain regimen, for that example. And not only that, I know what that solution looks like. I know that I need a diet. I know I need a workout plan. So I'm very clear about what I'm looking for, right? And so they're not reaching out to you to help them identify the problem. They are reaching out to you they've identified the solution and they're saying, okay, do you have this? or even fewer people, but about 24% people reach out when they are only evaluating a solution. I have three options, option 1, 2, and 3. Tell me, how does your option do against that? Some people only reach out to you to resolve concerns. Oh, I have a pricing as well. So now I know the solution. I know what are the various options on the solutions. I want to do a comparative on the pricing. And some people only reach out to negotiate. And this is what's really making a big difference. So what do I want to do when I'm thinking about customer relationship management is to be able to engage with my customers early in their buying decision process. Because if I could engage early and I could help them create the criteria basis which they will identify the solution, there is a very high likelihood that my solution will fit the criteria. And that's what I want to be able to do, right? And so you have to think about your businesses and say, to the target segment that you reach out to, when do you reach out to them? How do you engage with them? Where are they in their own buying decision, right? And so we went a step further and we asked people, what are your expectations? And I know this data is a little more B2B than B2C, but I would say it would apply to both the worlds. Understand my business or understand me is what they are looking for in terms of expectation. The second thing is they are saying excellent communication. Now, I'm going to pause here a little and talk about this for just a bit. What do we mean excellent communication? So when we are saying excellent communication, we don't mean talking good English or being really suave in the kind of vocabulary you use. But excellent communication is I can crisply and clearly communicate to you what you would be able to make sense of. So it's simple, it's easy to understand, and it's easy to action upon. And that's what excellent communication means. Sometimes we feel we've done our job. Oh, I was excellent at communication, but if the other person didn't understand my message, was I really excellent in communication? It's like, for example, right now I was speaking in Spanish and none of you understand Spanish. Even though I was most brilliant in Spanish, it wouldn't matter because that's not your language of communication. So think about it again from a CRM perspective to the target segment that you're reaching out to you. Do you understand the language they speak? And are you excellent at that language? That's what excellent communication means. The third piece there is focus on post sales. So a lot of times we invest energy on pre-sales and sales, but we don't invest the same energy on post-sale because up to customer aa gaya, right? Signed up. But that's equally, if not more important, because that's where your margins sit. You could sign up a customer, and if you lose that customer as fast as you sign them up, your cost of customer acquisition goes up really high. And that's the reason the focus on post-sale is very critical. If you committed to somebody that you will deliver X value, it is up to you to go back to them and show them how you've delivered that X value. And if you haven't delivered the X value, what's your plan of action to be able to do that? Because people don't expect perfection, but people do expect responsiveness. And the final piece there is provide insights and expertise. And this is really simple, but very difficult to deliver. And what it means of providing insights and expertise is to say, what is it that you would not have known if you had not met with me? That's about insights and expertise. Because if you're telling me everything that everybody else is telling me, then that's no value, right? That's not your differentiator. But what do you know that nobody else would tell me? And are you telling me that, again, well articulated in excellent communication, basis understanding me or my business? And that's when it will bring value. So think about some of those factors in the way you reach out to your customers and say, how do you do on some of these parameters? In fact, I recommend to organizations is to go to your existing customer and ask them feedback on these 4 points. What do you think I did well on? Did I understand you well? Was I good in my communication? Did I focus on post sale? Did you find value in the expertise or insights that I share with you? Go do a little customer research for yourself, because that will help you find some honest answers on that. Quickly moving to saying, okay, but what should I be doing in CRM? I'm sure all of you joined this webinar today thinking you'll get some easy to use formulas. So I have to give it to you, trying to make it simple. Let's call it the E4, right? So the first piece is engagement. I am assuming you've identified what your customer segment is, because that's really like the starting point of that. Now you need to think about how will you engage with this customer segment. And remember, at this point, you're not selling, you're only engaging, you're networking, you're creating social connections. It could be over social media, it could be getting referred by someone who knows you and knows them, but it's about creating an engagement platform between you and your customer. And that's important. And think about this building upon all that we've just spoken about, right? How will you be able to do engagement if you don't know them? If you're not excellent in communication, if you don't understand their world, it's going to be very difficult to do. So those things will become a hygiene factor for you to do this first piece, engage. Okay. And engagement is a two-way process. It's not, I will sell to you, I will sell with you. And that's important. The other piece then is think about the experience you create. And I think I find a lot of times I hear a lot of noise when I speak to startups about their story. So, as an entrepreneur, you may have a story, but then once you start building up a team, does your team tell the same story with the same passion and the same panache? Because that's important. And I think the most critical piece I've found here is, and maybe this is our problem from where we come from. Over the years, we've always tried to categorize business. And because we put our business into a category, we try and look at what are other people doing in that space. And then I try and mirror some of that, because I want to tell my customer I'm a part of that category. So here I'm going to flip this. I'm saying, why don't you create your own category? I can give you an amazing example. You may or may not agree with me on that, but think about what Patanjali has done in the space of FMCG. And if you go deeper and understand, when Patanjali launched a toothpaste or the ghee or the oil that they did, if you went to any market, any store, they would have had to place it in the category, which means you would find their toothpaste in the category of toothpaste, or you would find their desi ghee in the category of desi ghee. Now, this is something that Patanjali did, which was a smart move. They said, I will never be able to stand out if I fit into that specific category. So what they did was they created their own category called Ayurveda. If you go to any of the supermarkets, you'll find today there is a separate shelf, which is Ayurveda. Now here, if you look at it, you've got the toothpaste, the ghee, the atta, the whatever else Patanjali makes in one shelf. And now other people are struggling to get into that category. And I know it's not an easy thing to do unless you have the value of being in a space where you can create a category like that. But I'm still going to use that as an example because I want you to think about it. To whatever business you do, what's your story? What's that one thing that only you can do? Because if you haven't identified that, then your story is just a copy of somebody else's story. That's not your differentiator. And that's why it kind of talks to that second point you see on my slide. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Doesn't work in relationships, doesn't work in life, doesn't work in businesses. Your strength is, who do you want to be and for whom? And both those pieces are important. And I think the third piece that we've been seeing, and these pandemics and the other things that are happening around us are even a bigger reason for us to think about that. What's the purpose of you doing it? Why do you do this business? Yeah, you want to make money. Fair. But you could make money doing 10 other things. Why this? Because you have to appeal to a larger purpose. What's my purpose? My purpose is to elevate the strategic importance of sales. Because when I started out, people thought sales is a bad word. They thought if you chose sales in your career, you were good for nothing. And that's the reason you got into sales, because kuch aur kar hi nahi sakte the. And I have worked hard to prove this to people that no, sales has a strategic importance. Businesses cannot function if you don't know how to sell. And it's been my purpose. It's the reason why I wake up every day. It's the reason why I join webinars like this. And I want you to think about whatever business you're in, and don't tell me, oh, my business is fairly commoditized. I don't know if I can find a purpose. Oh, you have to have a purpose. And that purpose has to be beyond making money. Why did you choose that business? And I'm happy to have a conversation with you if I can help you think through that. But please define that, because those things will then create your experience with your customer. And that's a differentiated experience that you'll be able to create. The third piece there is about how do you create an emotional and rational connect. People make emotional decisions and hide it by logic. Think about mobile phones, since that's been our story since the beginning. Let's stay with that example. If you have an Apple iPhone, why did you buy an iPhone? Now, a lot of people will tell you, oh, it has this feature. I love the, the platform. It's really the OS that defines what I use and all of that. But I can tell you a lot of that is also the emotional connect. Oh, I wanted to have an iPhone. And it's pretty much just that. And then I can justify it as to why I want an iPhone and why I want the newest iPhone the moment it launches. It's about making an emotional decision and justifying it by logic. We do that all the time. It's proven by neuroscience. So what that means is, with your customers, how do you spark that? And that's really what we call empathy. How do you create that emotional and rational connect? How many of us would have seen this? Maybe you've experienced it yourself. I will not buy the top end model of Maruti, but I'm willing to buy the cheapest Audi. Why? Since the top model of Maruti possibly had more features than the entry level Audi. But you have to know that it wasn't about Audi or Maruti at all, right? It wasn't about the features of the car. It was about my perception of what that brand connection does for me. And that's what I mean motivators. Do you understand your customers' motivators? Right. And the final one is, if you did all this amazingly well, can you get them into action? Because if you can't get them into action, it doesn't put money on the table. And that money doesn't clink in your bank account. And all the effort you did was useless. And that's why that final one there is exertion. Do you have the credibility to influence somebody into action? And that is a critical E you need to think about. You created great engagement, you've created a differentiated experience, you've been able to connect from the motivator's perspective, then you should be able to move them in a direction where they're going to do something about it. And think about this like, you know, if if you're baking a cake, you add some baking powder to it. It's an enhancer. It will ensure that your cake fluffs up, right? Think about that same thing in making decisions. What are your decision enhancers through your cycle of engagement with your customers? Are you talking about return on investment? Are you talking about return on effort? Are you talking about return on equity? What are you talking about? What helps your customer enhance their decision? And do you know that? And are you able to have that articulated well in your story? Because that is critical. Now, we've spoken about CRM, but we've spoken about it from a perspective of customer relationship management. So here are a few things you should be looking at from a business critical data for effective CRM, which is to say, do you understand your customer segment? Obviously, but how do they make buying decisions? Is there a pattern? And very often this pattern is psychographic. Like I said, some people would rather buy an Audi than buy a Maruti top model. It's psychographic, right? Do you understand what defines the decision making process? Is there a seasonality? Oh, it's the wedding season. Oh, I need a summer body. Oh, this is appraisal time. Oh, this is the time, you know, the new financial year kicks in. Whatever is it. Do you know what are the triggers to decision making? Do you understand how does the customer's buying journey go? What do they go through from a buying journey perspective? Do you know how to use all that information to collaborate across your own organization? Now, you could be 3 people or you could be 20. Whatever is the size of your organization, remember, customer engagement is an organization KPI. So you need to be able to connect. Everybody needs to be able to connect on that, right? And this is possibly not in the order of priority, but what's your forecast? Again, something I see small businesses don't do very well. They don't put out a forecast. Jo ho jayega, theek hai yaar. Nahin, business doesn't run like that. Business needs to have a forecast. Beginning of the year, you need to say, what is my forecast? Am I going to do 1 crore, 5 crore, 20 crore? What is your plan? And then be ruthlessly honest to yourself. Measure your actual against that plan. Are you getting there? Because what is that going to lead to is that next point, resource allocation. You thought I will earn 1 crore, or I will do a revenue of 1 crore, I will earn 25 lakhs. You are on track to earn only 50 lakhs. Can you spend 25 lakhs? Of course not. All of a sudden your resource allocation will change and you will need to prioritize. And that's the reason why this is important, right? Forecast is important no matter what size of business you do. 20 lakh ka business kar rahe ho ya 20 crore ka, doesn't matter. Forecasting is an important business activity, right? And the final one there is to do performance reviews. fail to plan is a plan to fail. And this has been like my favorite one, because I can tell you, I learned the hard way. I started my own business and I realized this was my biggest gap when I started my business. Now, if I were to talk about technology, and I want to take like the next 10 minutes to be able to do that, we look at businesses and we find a lot of the time goes into non-sales activity or um, operational activity, right? We do a lot of that task. And there is very limited time that goes into actual customer engagement or sales activity, right? Now, this is where technology can come in. Now, so far we were talking about customer relationship management and its importance to your business. Now we are saying, okay, how do I make this easier on myself? Allow technology to come in. Now, there are two things that you have to look at. There are two data points on this slide. One data point is 65% of the time that I'm spending is non-sales or non-customer relationship time. It is internally focused. I want to reduce this time, because if I can give something back here and make my 35%, 40%, 45%, it will give me more time there, right? So one is I want to reduce what we call the tedium. Tedium is, it's a linear process. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, it can be outsourced to technology today, right? So think about what out of those activities can you outsource to technology. And the other piece is this 35% time. If I only had 35% time, then it's about saying, how do I make this time more effective? Right? So can I get better ROI of this 35% time? And that's the other piece you have to look at. Now, when you look at technology, and a lot of people say CRM, and I'm like, okay, what do you really mean? There are, and this is not a never ending list, but these are 4,000 brands who in some form enable sales or CRM. Okay. And this is mind boggling, which means if you were to think about what technology should I use, you will struggle to find an answer to that. So here's an easy way to look at it. Now, think about this. What is it that you need from a technology standpoint to give you value in your business? You need data about your customers so that you can sell more, right? You want to grow your business. So what do you need? Very often the technologies that people are using could be CRM systems or ERP systems are really at the bottom. They are hindsight, or what we call lagging indicators. They tell you what is happening. Okay, now I reached out to 5 customers. This is the name of the customer. This is the address of the customer. All of that I've put in, right? So what is happening is I am meeting with 5 customers. Doesn't say anything. So I say, okay, now I need to build a dashboard on top of that. It should give me some insight. So I build a dashboard and I start looking at why did it happen. So I have this data of 5 customers. Now I say, all right, 3 of them bought from me, 2 of them didn't buy from me. Why did these 3 buy? What was happening in their world that made them buy, right? Is there a seasonality? Is there a trigger? Are they in a specific category? Now what I've started to do is I'm doing diagnostic analytics. I'm saying, why did it happen? What happened? I'm still looking at lagging indicators, by the way. The real value of technology would be if it would give you foresight. And that's the big one. Why would I want to invest in a CRM is if it were to give me predictive analytics or prescriptive analytics for that matter. which is to say, and yes, it will need the baseline. It will need to know what are those 5 customers you reached out to and which of the 3 bought from you. But then if it has a way to tell you, all right, now in this category of customers, this trend is coming in. And if you reacted to this trend, there is a higher probability of you getting your solution in. Now that would become predictive, right? Or it would come and tell you, hey, you're connected to so and so is talking about this right now. If you reached out to so and so right now with a strong message, this is what it could do for you. Now that's getting prescriptive analytics. I don't represent a brand of technology, sales technology, but I can tell you that when you are looking at technology to support your business in your next level of growth, think about what are the tools that are available that are going to help you do this. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive technology available. You could do this using Excel files. But the point is, you need to start thinking like that. As a business owner, don't get stuck in the descriptive analytics. Think about how does that descriptive analytics give you predictive analytics, and focus on those parameters. But then there is technology, and what is technology really enabling us to do is, when we talk about customer relationship management, we talk about a funnel. A funnel is really to say, I reach out to 10 customers, 5 of them got interested in my conversation, 3 of them asked me for my pricing, 2 of them bought from me. That's what creates my funnel, right? Now, you need to have a sales funnel, which means if you want to get 2 customers, you should be speaking to 10 if you know that's what your conversion ratio is. And the focus is not at the bottom of the funnel, but the focus is at top of the funnel. It is to say, if you don't have 10 people you're speaking to, there is no way you're going to get 2 orders. So don't focus on मेरे इस महीने के 2 order नहीं आए. Do your back calculation and say, to get those 2 orders, how many customers did you need to speak to? And have you done that? And what's your engagement strategy? What's the experience you've created? Right? And it goes back to that E4 that we were speaking to. And I won't get into too many details here, but if you did want to know more about this, I'm happy to chat up with you to the next level of detail. But when we talk about enabling your business in sales, we are saying focus on activity multiplied by quality divided by time, which is your A into Q. Activity, how many people did you reach out to today? Multiplied by quality, how many of them were good calls? Activity into quality. I reached out to 10 people. I was really prepared for only 7. Yeah. So that's what we're doing, because the multiplier is the quality divided by time. How much time did you have? It can't be 24 hours, cannot be even 8 hours, because you have other things to do in your business as well. So how much time was that? And then you also divide it by distractions. Markets like this pandemic, multiple distractions happening right now. If you have an office, you're thinking about when office is open, how are we going to make people sit? How will we maintain social distancing protocols? If you are doing this on your own, if you're a home managed business, then you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to manage this with children studying in one room, spouse in another room, and all of that happening. And all of those are distractions to your business. I'm not saying they're not important for you. Believe me, they are important and critical, but it's a distraction from the business piece that you need to do. And that's why that's a divide, right? And all of this is really going to be giving you your revenue. So think about some of those parameters. And then think about, if you were to invest in a CRM technology, what should that technology look like? So firstly, it should adapt to your sales methodology, and there are various platforms that are available. It should be intuitive. Don't make this difficult, okay? Make it simple. If your business is simple, reaching out to your customer is simple, it should just be a simple sales process. Look for technology that allows you to make it simple. Remember, it needs to be a two-way street. When you add in something to the CRM should be able to give back something to you. So don't just invest in an app or a technology where you keep putting in information and it's not talking back to you. Easy to use, simple to manage. Tomorrow you're going to scale up your business and you're not going to be the only one using it. Think about that today. And I always say this to startups: if you are doing 1 crore, think about what would you need to do when you're a 5 crore business. If you're doing 5 crores, think about what would you need to do when you're a 20 crore business, and do that today. Because you're not going to become 20 crore if you don't do what you need to do at 20 crores today. And that's what I mean by this. Ensure that it's easy to use, simple to manage. If it's technology, it needs to be on your mobile today. Look at something that has built-in dashboards so that you're not worried about what we were talking about, diagnostic, right? You should be worrying about predictive. So the diagnostic should come built in. And that's why we are saying it should have adaptive analytics. Today, we are all talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence and all of that, which means if for 3 months I put in data into a technology, after 3 months, it should start giving me analytics around it. I expected out of my Fitbit today. I've been wearing a Fitbit for 3 years. It knows how much I walk, what's my activity levels. I don't usually sleep well on Wednesdays. I am most active on Saturdays. It starts to give me analytics. And that's what I mean, that whatever technology you use, the technology should be able to adapt to your world, right? And finally, it should have connectors to the rest of the technology stack that you use. Don't invest in independent technologies. Your technology needs to create an ecosystem and it needs to talk to each other. So if you're a small business and you're feeling ready to invest in technology for CRM, focus on this. But nevertheless, if you are not thinking about technology, but you're just thinking about CRM, what is important for you to know is CRM needs to be integrated in the way you work. And data will help you. Data always helps in business. A business that does not do data analysis cannot survive in a long term. Business means there is a reason why you're in the business. It needs to make money. It needs to make profit. You have to put some proof points or basic foundation under it. And it's not about being nice to you and saying, यार खर्चा पानी तो चल रहा है. नहीं नहीं नहीं. खर्चा पानी चलाने के तो बहुत से तरीके हैं. But a business is for a reason. And that business reason needs to come out in the way you work. So think about some of those factors. And I'm just going to kind of go back to my slide on E4, because to me, this is really what customer relationship management is. And I'm going to take a pause here. Happy to answer if you have questions for me, and we can see if you put any in the chat. But that's what I put together. We'll ensure you have this deck available, and I'm happy to have more conversations with you even post this webinar.
Thank you, Priya. Folks, we'll start taking questions now. So feel free to put your question in the chat box and I'll take one by one. One question that I would like to start with, Priya, here is that we often receive this requirement that do small businesses need CRM, and what should be the starting point to look at organizing that information? Because some have customer database of say 100 or in the thousands, so that's a different scale for each small business. So what is the starting point to start looking at organizing that information?
Sure. I don't know if there's a formula for that, but I think the best way to think about that is when you start a business, first you try and find a proof that this business is here to stay, right? And uh, once you cross that stage, you get to a stage in your business where you start thinking scalability. Now, that is the time when you need CRM. The moment you've started to think about scalability in business, it doesn't matter you have 100 customers or 1,000. The moment you start thinking scalability, then think about getting a technology platform which can create a repository of that information, because you will need that wherever you are. If you were 100, you are now thinking about being 500. If you were 1,000, you're thinking about being 10,000. So scalability being priority needs a CRM is what I would say. And for different businesses, it could mean differently.
All right. So one question that we have is from Almas. She says, "Can you talk a bit more about the buying journey?"
Sure, I can. And I think that's a good question. Think about it from once you've defined your customer segment, the buying journey is about thinking about how do they make a buying decision. So you mentioned, Almas, is that you manufacture mirrors. And so if you were to sell them, I'm assuming you would either reach out to people who are renovating or building their houses. You may be reaching out to interior decorators. You may be reaching out to contractors. And it's about each one of those customer segments thinking about how do they make their buying journey. So if somebody is making a commercial building or they're making a house, what they'll first create a blueprint. At what stage do they start thinking about design elements? Do they reach out to an architect or an interior designer? Do they think that themselves? Do they go to a stockist? Do they look at magazines? Do they go to a good houses website? How do they think about these ideas? And it's about then ensuring that you are with them in that journey. So if you were thinking about how they make their buying journey, then you're thinking about how do I then become a part of their journey as they go through that. And I think that's going to be important. So you have to think about your customer segment, and then it's like backtracking it and saying, how does this customer arrive at this decision to buy my product, service, or solution? What happens before that? Do they speak to 5 people? Do they do a budget allocation? Do they get help for design? Do they need a contractor for this? And then looking at your ecosystem says, how do I cover all these bases so that I can be more effective in my customer conversation? So I think that's how I would look at the buying journey.
Shubha has one question, which is currently customer behavior is changing and corporates and individuals are relooking at spends. How do we forecast now? Do we assume a percentage of earlier numbers? How to arrive at that percentage? My business is corporate workshops and content for businesses.
Yeah, tough one. I actually was debating this with some people who do market research just the other day. And I was telling them that, now we are going to divide our data on category of pre-pandemic and during pandemic, and hopefully we'll soon get to the post-pandemic. But a lot of the data that we had in the pre is become irrelevant because we were living in a different world and now we are in a different world. So I can absolutely empathize from you in terms of how corporate workshops have taken a hit. Firstly, if you were more doing instructor-led trainings, please find a way to get to the digital mediums, because the instructor-led training is going to be the most impacted. Anyways, we were seeing a lot of people discussing digital learning, virtual sessions, e-learning, online training, but people were not moving because of some reason or the other. Now this pandemic has removed all those reasons. So people are going to move and they are not going to come back. So this is, your business is classically a business that needs to get ready for the new norm. The new norm is online. The new norm is digital. So you have to think about that. I would recommend, think about your content for businesses more than your corporate workshops right now, because people will need content more. Because if we are going digital, I need to have content to go digital, right? And everybody's struggling with that. I hear this from sales leaders all the while, where they're saying, I know what I'm good at, but I need somebody to articulate it for me. I need somebody who can create a thought leadership article and make it relevant to the category of customer I want to reach out to. So I think that part of the business would grow. Even if in the past you didn't think that was your big chunk of your business, possibly that will be your big chunk of business going forward. So invest on that. But I know this is a tough time and you will have to recalibrate your business then.
Priya has one question, and I think I would also want to know this. So she's asking, with the crisis that many of our prospects are facing due to this pandemic, how should the narrative change when approaching them so they don't think you are hard selling?
And this is a tough one, right? Because I don't know if you can sell when you're not selling. But yeah, my guidance on that, if I can give that, is, you know, you you can't pretend to not sell. Then you have to actually make that departure. I know it's difficult for a business, and I hope you've managed your margins in the pre-pandemic area so that you can sail through the next 6 months. But in this time, don't lead in thinking about business. If you're leading in thinking business continuity, you will start doing hard selling. You have to actually honestly from the heart say, I want to lean in. I want to really, really, empathize with you. I want to understand, is there a way I can help you? Let's just go for mind share. You gain mind share, you will get wallet share tomorrow, but it will be tomorrow. It will not be today. And if you get something out of it today, that would be a bonus, right? But I think if you believe that this is the time to engage with your customers and you don't want to do hard selling, then honestly, there is no soft selling. You can be subtle, but selling is selling, right? But if you have to sell, I would, and I'm saying this to people, if you're a business organization, please be honest to yourself and your customers that you're a business organization. You're not a social organization. Business continuity is important for you. And if that be true, what are you doing about it? And talk to your customers about it. I am doing that in my setup, and I'm telling people, yeah, I'm happy to get more competitive on pricing because business is important for me. So yeah, if it's a mutual win-win, you wanted to buy from me, but you didn't buy from me because you thought I was pretty much up there in my solutions. I'm giving you the same value of solution at a different pricing today, and I'm more willing to do that because yeah, I am worried about business continuity. I have salaries to pay. I have my things to take care of as well. And I'm saying, let's be honest to each other. This is not a time where, and you see this on LinkedIn, and I've been like saying this to people, stop doing that. Everybody wants to do a webinar and monetize it at the end of it. Then don't do it, yeah. Because, and I know it's a tough one, but let's be honest around it, is what I'm saying.
One question we have from Aparna, which is, do you have any suggestions for when one sells via an intermediary? For example, in the media space, enterprise sales happen via agency, and it's sometimes hard to understand the feedback. Can CRM provide accurate diagnostics in such industries?
Uh, well, yeah.
Folks, can you hear Priya, or am I the only one seeing you frozen? Just give me a moment. So just give us a moment. I'll just sort this out. I think there is a network issue at Priya's end. Folks, we are getting her back. Just give us a moment. Meanwhile, you can put your question in the chat box and I will take it in.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can everybody hear Priya?
Sorry, guys.
Yes, we can now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So we were talking about the technology tools, and what I was mentioning there is that, remember, the tool is only as good as the information that gets put into it. So the tool pretty much can't do anything. But then in this kind of a case, I think it's important to find ways of engaging with the end customer, even though you're selling through the agency. And you have to create an occasion to be able to do that so that you can manage everything well. But I think that's the only way you can do that. CRM by itself can't give you the answers if nobody put in that information in it.
I hope that answers your question, Aparna. Are there more questions? You can take them up. Folks, please put it in the chat box. Looks like there is no question, Priya, right now. If there is any question that you would like us to answer related to managing your customer database and what Priya has talked about, feel free to share that over mail, and we would love to connect back. We'll be sharing deck with you over email, and where you can. Can you hear everybody? All right. So once again, thank you, Priya, for joining us. It was insightful, and so we'll be coming up with more sessions in the upcoming weeks. The next lineup is related to funding, so which is primarily focused on how to approach investors, because during this time the approach and the fundraising is gonna shift in the terms how we approach them, how that's gonna turn around, and how the what the investors are looking for. So we'll be discussing that in the next session. I am just sharing a link to sign up in the chat box, so you can have a look at that and the sessions which are planned for the next weeks, and we'll be updating it with more sessions which are coming up in May. So stay tuned with us, and yes, lovely listening from all of you, lovely meeting all of you.